Welcome to Tech Eye Spy. Today we step into a world that rarely invites visitors. The quiet corridors of nuclear manufacturing, where reputation is earned in years and lost in seconds. Our subject is BWX Technologies, better known as BWXT, a company that most people never see yet. Almost everyone relies upon if they live under the protection of a nuclear navy or inside a power grid that still believes in steam and steel. This is not a consumer brand. There are no billboards, no celebrity endorsements, no seasonal product launches. BWXT lives behind heavy doors, inside facilities that speak in certifications and tolerances. Its customers are institutions that move slowly and think in decades. The United States Navy is one, national laboratories are another, energy utilities and reactor designers complete the circle. When engineers whisper about suppliers who always deliver, they tend to speak of BWXT. In this episode, we will not start with the share price or the quarterly numbers. We begin with structure, with how the company is arranged to do the work that it does. We consider reputation, the social capital of safety and trust that nuclear work demands. We consider technology, from naval reactor fuel to the vast pressure vessels that must perform quietly for half a lifetime. Only after that foundation is laid will we glance at the financial picture. Because in a field like this, the balance sheet usually follows the factory floor. BWXT is also present at the frontier. Partnerships with Rolls-Royce on small modular reactors point to a future of compact, repeatable nuclear power. Work with space and defense programs hints at a new age where fission is not only at sea or on land, but potentially beyond the atmosphere. The company stands at the crossing of old reliability and new ambition, and that is where our analysis will live. BWX Technologies stands among a very small number of companies that can genuinely claim to build the machinery of civilization. Its greatest strength is its singular focus. It does not wander into unrelated markets or pursue fashionable diversification. Everything BWXT does flows from one purpose: mastery of the nuclear process, and that clarity has made it both resilient and indispensable. The company's government operations division anchors its identity. For decades, BWXT has been the trusted manufacturer of nuclear reactors and reactor fuel for the United States Navy. Every submarine that moves beneath the surface, every aircraft carrier that crosses an ocean, does so with a BWXT heart beating inside it. These contracts are not one-off deals. They are generational commitments backed by the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense. Such long-term relationships provide stability that most industrial firms can only dream of. It gives BWXT something rarer than cash flow continuity. Technologically, BWXT's strength lies in what might be called its engineering gravity. It possesses facilities and certifications that few others can match. The company's plants in Virginia, Ohio, and Ontario hold the highest possible classifications for nuclear component manufacture, including ASME Section 3, Division 1, Class 1 certification, the gold standard for safety and precision. This means it can fabricate pressure vessels capable of withstanding decades of neutron bombardment and thermal stress. To achieve this, BWXT has cultivated expertise in high-integrity metallurgy, exotic alloys, and precision welding. The tolerances are unforgiving, yet the company's quality record is nearly spotless. BWXT also enjoys a formidable moat built from trust. Nuclear contracts are not easily reassigned. They depend on decades of proven safety and compliance. The company's internal culture of documentation and verification means that every component it produces is traceable through its entire life cycle. That discipline turns safety into a brand. Regulators know it. The Navy knows it. Rolls-Royce, its partner in the small modular reactor program, knows it too. Another strength lies in its adaptability within a rigid framework. BWXT is not a laboratory of freewheeling experimentation, but it evolves constantly. The company has already transitioned from building massive one-off reactors for fleets and plants to designing modular units for emerging SMR markets. It has developed the capacity to produce halo high assay, low-enriched uranium, positioning itself to supply next-generation reactors that require more advanced fuel. It also participates in early-stage research into nuclear propulsion for space exploration, a sign that its expertise can scale from oceans to orbits. Geopolitically, BWXT occupies a near-sovereign position in Western nuclear infrastructure. In a world re-evaluating its dependence on foreign fuel and components, a company that can design, fuel, and assemble reactors entirely within North America becomes a strategic asset. Its reputation for secrecy and compliance allows governments to treat it as both contractor and custodian, the quiet guardian of the nuclear supply chain. In short, BWXT's strength is precision married to permanence. It builds machines that outlast political cycles and economic trends, supported by a culture that sees engineering as duty rather than product. It is not flashy, but it is foundational, and in the nuclear age, that kind of reliability is a rare and powerful form of strength. BWX Technologies carries weaknesses that are less about failure and more about the limits of its own success. Its concentration, the very focus that grants it authority, also narrows its flexibility. BWXT is a company bound tightly to nuclear energy and defense. It does not have the escape hatches of a diversified conglomerate. Should government priorities shift, or the Navy adopt an unexpected propulsion alternative, a large share of its identity would be left exposed. Its dependence on government contracts shapes everything from its workflow to its culture. The bureaucracy that comes with defense procurement can shield revenue, but also smothers innovation. Decisions must move through layers of oversight, meaning progress often proceeds at the speed of paperwork rather than imagination. Inside the company, this cultivates an environment where precision and compliance are rewarded above risk-taking, leaving little room for entrepreneurial momentum. BWXT's engineers are among the best in the world, but they operate within a system that prizes consistency over disruption. Another weakness lies in perception. Because BWXT exists mostly in the classified and industrial shadows, it lacks public awareness. That invisibility can be a strength in national security, yet it also isolates the company from the growing momentum of clean energy narratives. While other nuclear startups present themselves as climate innovators or modular pioneers, BWXT still appears to investors and the general public as a contractor serving old defense systems. Its legacy brand doesn't easily fit the language of sustainability, even though its technologies will almost certainly underpin the coming wave of small modular reactors. There is also the challenge of workforce continuity. Much of BWXT's expertise resides in veteran engineers and machinists, trained in the older Babcock and Wilcox traditions. These are skills that cannot be learned from a manual. They are transferred through apprenticeship, observation, and time. As these specialists retire, replenishing that depth of experience will test the company's succession planning. The younger generation of engineers, raised on software and simulation, may find the company's culture of heavy fabrication both demanding and slow to evolve. Financially, the nuclear sector imposes its own inertia. Every project BWXT undertakes involves colossal upfront costs, extended timelines, and complex regulatory milestones. Cost overruns are almost inevitable, and even small errors can ripple through years of accounting. This capital intensity makes it difficult for BWXT to pivot quickly or experiment with smaller ventures. Its infrastructure is built for giants, not for speed. Finally, there is a subtler vulnerability: the public's relationship with nuclear energy itself. Despite renewed interest in carbon-free baseload power, nuclear remains politically sensitive. A change in public sentiment, an accident abroad, or a shift in administration could slow reactor programs and, by extension, BWXT's commercial opportunities. The company has little influence over these perceptions, yet remains bound by them. BWXT's weaknesses, then, are not the marks of fragility but of inertia. It is a disciplined, cautious, and somewhat insular enterprise, operating within boundaries that protect it but also constrain it. In the nuclear world, that is both a virtue and a cage. The opportunities before BWX Technologies arise from a convergence of history and necessity. For the first time in decades, the nuclear sector is not retreating but advancing. Governments that once hesitated are now searching for stable, carbon-free energy that can complement renewables without the volatility of weather or geopolitics. In that search, BWXT finds itself in a position of quiet privilege, already certified, already trusted, already capable. The most immediate opportunity is the renaissance of small modular reactors. Nations from Canada to the United Kingdom are seeking scalable nuclear systems that can be manufactured, shipped, and installed with the repeatability of industrial equipment. BWXT's long experience in naval reactors, effectively miniature power plants that move, gives it a natural advantage. The engineering challenge of SMRs is not entirely new to the company. It has been building compact, highly secure reactors for submarines for generations. Its partnership with Rolls-Royce on the British SMR program and its involvement with domestic US designs mean BWXT can translate military precision into civilian production, turning its historic discipline into commercial opportunity. Another frontier lies in nuclear propulsion for space exploration. Both NASA and DARPA have enlisted BWXT in early research toward fission systems that could power deep space missions or serve as long-duration energy sources for lunar infrastructure. It is not a fantasy project. It draws directly from the company's expertise in reactor miniaturization and high-temperature fuel handling. If space agencies move beyond chemical rockets, BWXT could become the go-to manufacturer of off-planet power. Within Earth's orbit, halo fuel production opens another door. As the US and its allies distance themselves from Russian enrichment services, domestic supply of high-assay, low-enriched uranium becomes a matter of national security. BWXT is already preparing to produce HALEU for both defense and civilian applications, which could place it at the core of a Western nuclear fuel ecosystem. This is more than a business line. It is a geopolitical hedge that will remain valuable for decades. The aging of global reactor fleets also works in its favor. Many existing nuclear power stations are being refurbished rather than decommissioned, creating steady demand for replacement steam generators, pressure vessels, and containment components, all of which fall within BWXT's skill set. These projects are technically demanding and tightly regulated, barriers that keep competitors out and margins sustainable. Beyond reactors, there are industrial and medical isotopes, a smaller but fast-growing niche. BWXT's reactor technology can be adapted to produce critical isotopes used in cancer treatment and imaging. As the world faces shortages in medical isotope supply, this diversification could turn a national security contractor into a contributor to public health. There is also an ideological tailwind. The reframing of nuclear energy as part of the climate solution rather than the problem. Investors, once wary of the sector, are now looking again at nuclear through the lens of decarbonization. That shift may finally align BWXT's decades-old expertise with public sentiment, attracting capital and partnerships that were once politically unthinkable. The threats facing BWX Technologies are not immediate explosions, but slow, grinding pressures, the kind that wear on a company over decades rather than quarters. They stem from politics, perception, and physics, each capable of reshaping the terrain on which the company stands. The most powerful threat is policy volatility. BWXT lives at the intersection of defense spending and energy regulation, two realms governed more by politics than by markets. A shift in congressional priorities, a budget standoff, or a change in administration could alter procurement cycles overnight. Naval reactor programs are expensive commitments that depend on long-term political will. Should an economic downturn or foreign policy shift redirect funding, the steady rhythm of BWXT's government contracts could falter, leaving its factories underutilized but unable to pivot quickly to commercial work. Public sentiment toward nuclear energy remains another fault line. Although attitudes are improving, the sector still carries the shadow of Chernobyl and Fukushima. A single accident anywhere in the world could reignite old fears and stall reactor approvals globally. For a company so heavily tied to the word nuclear, reputation risk is universal. It can be punished for events it had nothing to do with. There are also geopolitical and supply chain vulnerabilities. The specialized alloys, fuels, and components required for nuclear work come from a narrow band of suppliers. Global instability, sanctions, or disruptions in uranium enrichment capacity could create bottlenecks that even a well-prepared company like BWXT cannot easily bypass. As Western governments attempt to decouple from Russian enrichment and Chinese rare metals, the cost and complexity of maintaining a fully domestic nuclear supply chain may rise sharply. Competition from new entrants presents a subtler threat. While BWXT has tradition and trust, younger firms such as NuScale, TerraPower, and X-Energy are capturing public attention and venture capital by framing nuclear as part of the green tech revolution. They build narratives as well as reactors. And in a world where storytelling drives policy, BWXT's understated presence can become a disadvantage. It risks being perceived as the old guard, technically impeccable, but strategically slow. The aging of its workforce may also erode resilience. As senior metallurgists and reactor engineers retire, their tacit knowledge, the art that lives between procedures, is at risk of being lost. Without aggressive succession planning, BWXT could find itself with infrastructure, but without the hands that know its temperament. And finally, there is the ever-present specter of regulation. Nuclear work will never escape scrutiny, but new safety requirements or export restrictions could delay projects for years. The very standards that keep BWXT dominant also make it vulnerable to bureaucratic drag. Every additional layer of compliance adds cost and time that competitors in less regulated industries never face. Taken together, these threats form a paradox. BWXT's strengths, its focus, its government ties, Its reputation for caution are also the sources of its greatest risk. It must navigate a world where being essential does not guarantee being agile, and where the smallest policy tremor can ripple through decades of planning. In the nuclear economy, survival is not just about power, it's about patience. And BWXT's future depends on how long that patience can hold. BWX Technologies is one of those rare industrial survivors that remind us how civilization actually works. Beneath the noise of quarterly trends and social media stories, it builds the engines of national endurance, the reactors that power fleets, the vessels that hold the atom's fury, and the fuel that drives quiet ships beneath the sea. It is not a disruptor and never tries to be one. Its strength lies in persistence, the habit of doing complex things correctly again and again for generations. Yet, the same qualities that make it dependable can also make it invisible. As new voices reshape the narrative of clean energy, BWXT must decide whether to remain the unseen craftsman or to step forward as a visible architect of a nuclear future that is smaller, safer, and closer to everyday life. Its opportunities are vast, but they require a cultural shift, a willingness to speak as well as to build. In a world chasing novelty, BWXT's story is about endurance. It proves that innovation sometimes hides in the discipline of repetition, in the long maintenance of knowledge that others have allowed to rust. Whether through small modular reactors, new fuels, or the dream of fission-powered exploration beyond Earth, BWX Technologies stands as one of the last true custodians of nuclear mastery. Thank you for listening to Tech-I Spy. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the quiet powerhouses of modern technology, subscribe for more narrative analyses of the companies shaping tomorrow's world, often from behind the curtain. I'm P.R.S. Whitley, and this was your inside look at BWX Technologies. Until next time, keep watching the world through a sharper lens.